The Federal Bureau of Investigation ran the most rigorous ammunition test in American law enforcement history. They tested every major service caliber in ballistic gelatin through heavy clothing, automotive glass, wallboard, and plywood. They built the protocol from scratch. They funded it, staffed it, and took it seriously. And when the results came back, one cartridge was better than everything else on the table. So they adopted it. Then they shot it, decided their own agents could not handle it, loaded it down until it was a shadow of what it had been, bought a pistol that jammed on the watered-down load, and walked away. The report they wrote after the first live fire evaluation did not mince words. Velocities extreme, pressures extreme, recoil extreme, control for multiple shots extremely difficult. That is the Federal Bureau of Investigation writing a warning label on the cartridge it had just designated its official service round. What followed is a story about an institution that asked for something it could not shoot, purchased a pistol that could not reliably cycle the load it had already decided to cut, and then handed the resulting compromise to a manufacturer who recognized what it was worth, shortened the case by 4 millimeters, and sold the result to every police department in the country. The 10mm auto survived all of it. What did not survive was the Bureau's nerve, the pistol's reliability, and any honest accounting of who benefited from the program the Bureau paid to develop. By the end of this video, you will know every decision that killed the full-power 10mm in federal service, the mechanism by which a second manufacturer turned the Bureau's retreat into a product line, and why the cartridge the FBI could not handle is still being carried today by men who never needed the Bureau's permission to know it worked. Jeff Cooper, formerly John Dean Cooper, was a Marine officer, a competitive shooter, and by the 1970s the most influential voice in American handgun doctrine. He founded the American Pistol Institute at Gunsight in Paulden, Arizona in 1976. He codified the two-handed combat grip, the flash sight picture, the compressed surprise break. If those techniques sound familiar, it is because they became the foundation of how American law enforcement and military trained with handguns for the next half-century. Cooper did not receive a royalty on any of it. His central argument, the one he returned to across 2 decades of writing and lecturing, was that American service handguns were firing the wrong cartridge. The .45 app threw a heavy bullet at around 850 feet per second. Effective at close range, it lost energy quickly past 50 yards. The 9mm threw lighter bullets faster, and in the loadings then common, did not consistently perform on contact. Cooper wanted the thing in between. A .40 caliber projectile, around 200 grain, moving near 1,200 feet per second. Heavy enough to carry momentum at distance. Fast enough to extend the effective range beyond what either existing option provided. He described this concept in print. He lectured on it at Gunsight. He argued for it in every forum available to him for the better part of 20 years. The established American ammunition manufacturers were not interested. Winchester did not build it. Remington did not build it. Federal did not build it. The major companies looked at the market for a high-pressure .40 caliber auto-pistol cartridge and decided it did not exist. The concept sat in magazine columns and classroom notes at a shooting school in the Arizona high desert, while the companies that had the tooling and the distribution to produce it waited for someone else to prove the demand. What finally produced the cartridge was a small California firm, Dornus and Dixon Enterprises out of Huntington Beach, working with the Swedish ammunition manufacturer Norma. The pistol they built around Cooper's concept was the Bren 10, introduced in 1983. The cartridge was the 10mm auto, 200 grain at 1,200 feet per second. It was exactly the specification Cooper had described for 2 decades. Dornus and Dixon collapsed inside 3 years. They shipped pistols without magazines because their magazine supplier could not deliver on schedule. Customers paid full price for a handgun they could not load. The company went into bankruptcy in 1986. The Bren 10 became a cautionary tale about small manufacturers and single-source components. But the Cartridge survived the company. Norma continued loading the 10mm auto. It was on the market, it was performing as specified, and it was available when the Bureau came looking. On the 11th of April 1986, 8 FBI agents conducted a vehicle stop on 2 bank robbery suspects in a suburb south of Miami. What followed lasted less than 5 minutes and left 2 agents dead and 5 wounded. The internal review was thorough, and the Bureau took it seriously. The finding that drove everything afterward was this: a 9mm round had struck one of the suspects, passed through his arm, entered his chest, and stopped short of the heart. He remained functional for long enough to kill 2 agents. The Bureau's assessment was that the cartridges its people were carrying had failed to deliver adequate terminal performance. The defined failure was penetration depth. Understand what that finding meant inside an institution like the FBI in 1986. 2 agents were dead. The press was covering it. Oversight committees were watching. The pressure to demonstrate that the Bureau had identified the problem and was fixing it was not abstract. The ammunition question gave the Bureau a concrete, technical, answerable problem in the middle of a situation that was otherwise difficult to address. They answered it the way a serious institution answers a technical problem. They built a test. In 1987, the Bureau convened a wound ballistics workshop at its training facility in Quantico, Virginia. Out of that workshop came a standardized testing protocol that the firearms and ammunition industries had never seen from a law enforcement body before. Calibrated ordnance gelatin mixed to a specific density. Standardized barrier sequences run before the gelatin, heavy denim clothing, automotive glass, wallboard, plywood, and sheet steel, each tested separately and in combination. Every major service caliber was run through every sequence under identical conditions. The methodology was sound. It was replicable. It removed the informal opinion and the manufacturer's marketing claim from the evaluation and replaced them with documented numbers. The protocol the Bureau developed at Quantico became the testing standard that ammunition manufacturers have designed to ever since, and it remains the basis of how law enforcement agencies in this country evaluate service ammunition today. That contribution is real, regardless of what happened to the program it produced. When the numbers were compiled, the 10mm auto led the field on every metric that the Bureau had determined to matter. Penetration depth through bare gelatin. Penetration depth after passing through each barrier type. Retained velocity. Retained energy at the target. It was not a close result. The 10mm outperformed the 9mm and the 45 ACP by margins that left no room for argument. The Bureau adopted the 10mm auto as its official service cartridge. Then they shot it. This is where the technical record has to be read carefully, because the decisions that ended the program were all made in these sessions. And once you understand the mechanics, they are not complicated. The 10mm auto operates at a maximum average pressure of 37,500 pounds per square inch. The 45 AP runs around 21,000. The 9mm Luger runs 35,000, close in number to the 10mm. But the 9mm is pushing a 115 to 124 grain bullet at that pressure. The 10mm is pushing 200 grain. Pressure is one part of the recoil equation. Momentum is the other part, and momentum is bullet mass multiplied by bullet velocity. At 200 grain and 1200 feet per second, the 10mm is generating momentum the 9mm at any standard loading cannot approach. What the shooter feels is not pressure. What the shooter feels is momentum transferred back through the grip frame and into the hand, and full power 10mm produces roughly twice the recoil energy of a standard 45 ACP load fired from a comparable pistol. Not somewhat more. Roughly double. The Bureau ran its agent population through qualification with the full power load and put the findings in writing. The report that came back carried language that is remarkable for an institutional document because it is so direct. Velocities extreme, pressures extreme, recoil extreme, control for multiple shots extremely difficult. That last finding is the one that decided the program's fate. A federal training program that certifies agents of every build, every hand size, and every prior shooting background through the same qualification course on the same standard cannot absorb a cartridge that doubles the recoil beyond what the qualifying population was trained on. The Bureau was not wrong that this was a problem. It was a genuine problem, and they recorded it accurately. Their solution was to reduce the load. The charge was cut. Bullet weight stayed near 200 grain. Velocity dropped to somewhere in the region of 950 feet per second. The resulting round became known in the trade as the FBI load, and colloquially as 10mm light. It still cleared the gelatin penetration thresholds the Bureau needed to justify the cartridge selection. It no longer delivered the velocity and energy figures that had put the 10mm at the top of the Quantico results in the first place. Cooper, based on his documented writing and public commentary from this period, was contemptuous of the reduced load. He had spent 20 years arguing that velocity was the variable that separated an adequate cartridge from an effective one. And the institution large enough to validate that argument had adopted the cartridge and immediately reduced the velocity. The engineering was not subtle. 950 feet per second is not 1200 feet per second. Anyone who had run the ballistics work understood what the reduction meant. There is a second consequence of that reduction that the Bureau does not appear to have fully considered before proceeding. At 950 feet per second with a 200 grain bullet, the powder charge that produces that velocity does not fill the 10mm auto case. The SAMI specification lists the 10mm auto case at 25 and 2/10 millimeters long. The reduced charge leaves a substantial empty column above it inside that case. That empty space was not cosmetic. It was a measurement that another company would take within months and act on with commercial precision. If you have wondered why the 40 Smith & Wesson appeared from nowhere in January of 1990 and immediately took over law enforcement handgun sales across the country, stay with me. The answer is in that empty case, and the story of how it got there is more direct than most accounts make it. The Bureau needed a pistol chambered in 10mm and built to its own operational requirements. Smith & Wesson took the contract. The Model 1076 was a large frame, stainless steel, double-action-only pistol with a frame-mounted decocker and no manual safety, designed and built to Bureau specification and delivered in quantity beginning around 1990. It did not work reliably. The documented failure modes included slides failing to go fully into battery, failures to feed, and failures to cycle on the reduced load. The last category is the one that most completely condemns the program because it is not a manufacturing defect or a parts tolerance problem. It is a consequence of a fundamental design conflict with no resolution available within the existing platform. A short recoil operated semi-automatic pistol functions by timing the unlocking of its breech against the pressure curve of the cartridge being fired. The recoil spring weight, extractor tension, magazine spring rate, and slide mass are engineered together to operate within a specific window of cartridge momentum. If the cartridge delivers momentum below that window, the slide does not travel far enough to complete the ejection and feed cycle. If it delivers momentum above that window, the slide unlocks before the chamber pressure has dropped to a safe level and the action runs faster than its feed timing can accommodate. The 1076 was designed and built around the 10mm auto cartridge. When the Bureau decided to carry the reduced load instead, the pistol was already in production and delivery was underway. The two decisions, specifying the pistol and cutting the load, were made at different times by different people, and the engineering consequence of that sequence is straightforward. The reduced load at 950 feet per second does not reliably generate enough momentum to run a slide and recoil spring assembly calibrated for a cartridge generating 1200 feet per second. The gun short strokes. It fails to eject the spent case. It fails to strip the next round from the magazine. The failure is not intermittent in the sense of an occasional parts problem. It is systematic. It happens because the load and the pistol are mismatched, and no adjustment to spring weight or extractor tension resolves a mismatch that large without creating the opposite problem with the other load. Agents were carrying a service pistol that failed to cycle on the ammunition they were issued. That is an unacceptable condition for a duty weapon under any circumstances, and the Bureau treated it accordingly. Consider what that means practically. A field agent qualifies with a pistol. He carries it. He holsters it every morning and hopes he never needs it. When he does need it, the conditions are not a controlled range with a gunsmith standing by. The 1076 was failing in the hands of agents who had no good option when it did. A pistol that malfunctions on duty ammunition in training will malfunction on duty ammunition in the field. The Bureau knew this. Every serious firearms trainer knows this. The 1076 was not a pistol the Bureau could keep issuing. There was also a reported sear and trigger group issue that led to a recall on a portion of the 1076 production run. The precise number of affected pistols is not consistently documented across available sources, and I will not assign a specific figure to it. What is not disputed is that pistols were being returned, that confidence in the platform inside the Bureau was low from early in the program, and that the transition away from the 1076 was underway by 1992. The program that had started with the most disciplined ammunition evaluation the Bureau had ever commissioned ended with agents returning their sidearms. The FBI load was running 200 grain at 950 feet per second. The powder charge that produces that velocity in a 10mm auto case leaves a substantial empty column of space inside it. Smith & Wesson, working with Winchester, looked at the ballistics of the reduced load, looked at that empty space, and drew the conclusion that any engineer with a set of calipers would draw. If you are only going to burn that much powder, you do not need that much case. The SAMI specification for the 10mm auto case is 25 2/10 millimeters. Smith & Wesson shortened it to 21 6/10. The shorter case held the reduced charge without wasted space. It was narrow enough in overall diameter to fit within a 9mm sized frame, which meant smaller grip circumference, lighter overall weight, and a pistol that a wider range of officers could handle to standard on a qualification course. They announced the result in January of 1990, before the Bureau's 1076 pistols had been fully distributed to field offices, before the malfunction reports had fully accumulated. They called it the 40 Smith & Wesson. The 40 Smith & Wesson duplicated the ballistics of the FBI reduced 10mm load with a precision that was not accidental. It was the FBI load in a shorter case. The Bureau had funded the wound ballistics research. The Bureau had developed the testing protocol. The Bureau had run every major service caliber through the gelatin and the barriers and produced the data that justified the 10mm selection in the first place. Smith & Wesson took the load the Bureau had already decided to carry, measured the case it did not fill, and brought the result to market at exactly the moment the program that had produced it was collapsing. If you know someone who carried a duty pistol in 40 Smith & Wesson through the 1990s or the 2000s, or if you carried one yourself, that is the Cartridge's origin. It is not an independent development arrived at through original research. It is the FBI's reduced 10mm load with 4mm of brass removed. Now here is the question for the comments. If you have carried or hunted with the full power 10mm, tell me what pistol you ran it in and whether the cycling ever gave you trouble with the hot loads. Because the field record on the full power cartridge is the part of this story that the law enforcement history almost never includes. The full power 10mm, the load the Bureau could not shoot, has been carried by hunters, guides and backcountry travelers in Alaska and across the Rocky Mountain West since the mid-1980s. 200-grain hardcast at 1,200 feet per second will penetrate through the shoulder of a black bear and reach the vitals. It will take an elk cleanly at distances where the .45 ACC has already lost the energy to do the job. In brown bear country, it is carried specifically because nothing else in a semi-automatic pistol of comparable size does what it does. A Glock 20 in full power 10mm cycles every round without a malfunction because the Glock 20 was designed around the full power cartridge from the beginning, not retrofitted to a load that was cut after the pistol was already in production. A Colt Delta Elite does the same. The pistols that were built to run this cartridge correctly have been running it correctly for 35 years. The men who carry those pistols in September in Alaska have no interest in the FBI program, no interest in the .40 Smith & Wesson, and no complaint about the recoil. The 10mm auto did not fail. The Bureau selected it correctly. The Quantico protocol was sound. The terminal performance data was real. What the Bureau could not manage was a training population large and diverse enough that the full power recoil exceeded what a single qualification standard could cover. That is an institutional problem, not a cartridge problem. The solution the Bureau chose was to reduce the load until the recoil problem disappeared, which also reduced the performance until the advantage that had justified the selection was largely gone with it. The pistol failed more directly. The Model 1076 was delivered to a Bureau that had already changed its ammunition specification, asked to cycle a load it was not calibrated for, and it could not do it reliably. That is a procurement failure and a coordination failure. It is not evidence that the 10mm auto is unmanageable in a well-built pistol, because 35 years of use in well-built pistols proves otherwise. Smith & Wesson read the situation clearly, measured the FBI load, shortened the case, and delivered the .40 Smith & Wesson to market before the program that produced it had finished failing. That is competent commercial timing. The cartridge they produced was not dishonest in engineering terms. It performed exactly as the FBI load performed, because it was the FBI load. The presentation of it as an independent development was the part that did not survive scrutiny. The Bureau built the most rigorous ammunition testing protocol in American law enforcement history, and that protocol is a lasting contribution that the industry still uses. What the Bureau selected worked. What the Bureau could not do was stay with it. The 10mm light became the .40 Smith & Wesson. The .40 Smith & Wesson went into the holsters of more American law enforcement officers than any other cartridge of its era, and the full-power 10mm, the original specification, the cartridge the FBI selected and then walked away from, stayed in the hands of the men who never needed the Bureau's permission to know it worked. It is still there, and it still works.